I remember the quiet hum of the oxygen machine, a constant companion in our home. For years, my life revolved around caring for my parent. Every morning, I woke before dawn to prepare their medicines, their breakfast, to ensure they were comfortable. My own dreams, my own needs, they faded into the background. It wasn't a sacrifice I regretted. It felt like a sacred duty, a promise I made long ago. My parents' gentle smile, a rare moment of clarity, was my greatest reward. I poured my entire being into their well-being, believing I was protecting them, loving them fiercely. Sarah, my sister, would visit sometimes. Her visits always left a strange feeling in the air. "You look tired, Clara," she'd say, not with concern, but with a subtle edge. "Are you sure you're managing everything perfectly?" Or she'd comment, "It must be so hard for you to have a life." Her words, like tiny needles, pricked at my confidence. I tried to brush them off, telling myself she just didn't understand the demands of caregiving. But a small part of me recognized the glint of something else in her eyes, something that wasn't sympathy. As time went on, my parent grew weaker, their memory fading like an old photograph. They relied on me for everything, clinging to my hand, seeking my comfort. This dependence deepened our bond, making my role feel even more vital. Sarah, however, seemed to see it differently. She would stand at the doorway, watching us, a shadow of resentment crossing her face. I sensed her feeling pushed out, but I couldn't abandon my parents' needs for her feelings. My parent needed me, and that was all that mattered. Then came the phone calls from our aunts and uncles. "Is everything all right there, Clara?" They'd ask, their voices tinged with a new worry. "Sarah mentioned your parents seemed a bit restless lately." Or, "She said you might be overwhelmed." I'd reassure them, explaining things were fine, but the questions always came after Sarah's visits. It felt like she was carefully planting seeds, not directly accusing me, but creating a quiet hum of concern that made me feel watched, judged. I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. One morning, I found my parents' medication organizer empty, scattered on the floor. I was certain I'd filled it the night before. Panic seized me. Had I forgotten? Had I been so tired? My parents seemed confused, unable to recall. Sarah arrived shortly after. "Oh, Clara, look at this mess," she tutted, picking up a pill. "You really need to be more careful. This could be dangerous." Her tone implied blame, and a wave of self-doubt washed over me. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, wondering if I truly was failing. A few weeks later, I found my parents shivering, wrapped in only a thin sheet, the window in their room wide open. It was a cold night. I knew I had closed it securely before going to bed. My heart pounded with fear for their well-being. "Clara, how could you be so careless?" Sarah exclaimed, rushing in just as I was covering my parent. "They could catch pneumonia." The accusation stung. My parent, confused, just looked between us. I tried to explain, but Sarah's words, sharp and condemning, seemed to stick. After Sarah's visits, my parent would sometimes look at me differently. "Did you forget to give me my tea, dear?" They'd ask, even though I'd just done so. Or, "Sarah says I should have more visitors." I heard Sarah whispering to them, "Clara is so busy, she probably doesn't mean to neglect you." It was subtle, but I felt a shift. My parent, once so trusting, now had moments of suspicion. I felt a cold dread creep into my heart. It was as if Sarah was slowly, carefully, chipping away at our bond. The strange incidents continued. Missing eyeglasses suddenly reappearing in odd places, a favorite blanket gone then found folded incorrectly. I started to question my own memory, my own sanity. Was I truly so exhausted that I was making these mistakes? The stress of caregiving was immense, and I convinced myself these were just symptoms of my own burnout. I tried to be more vigilant, to write everything down, but the feeling of being disoriented, of something being subtly wrong, never fully went away. The knock on the door came on a Tuesday. Two stern-faced people introduced themselves from social services. They spoke of a report and concerns for elder safety. They showed me photographs, a bruise on my parents' arm, a messy room, an empty medicine bottle. Evidence, they called it. My blood ran cold. I stared at the pictures, my mind reeling. How? When? I tried to explain to deny, but their eyes held a look of quiet judgment. The shame washed over me like a tidal wave, drowning me in disbelief. They said I had to leave, just like that. My parent looked at me, confused and distressed, clearly influenced by what they had heard. Sarah arrived, a picture of concerned compassion, offering to step in. "Don't worry, Clara," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I'll take good care of them." I was publicly shamed, stripped of my role, facing legal threats. My inheritance, my life savings, all gone. Heartbroken and utterly bewildered, I watched Sarah move into my place. But as I left, a fierce resolve ignited within me. I would uncover her truth. After they made me leave, a deep, cold despair settled over me. I felt utterly lost, cut off from the one person who needed me most. The silence in my temporary apartment was deafening, a stark contrast to the constant hum of my parents' oxygen machine. My heart ached with the separation, a physical pain. But beneath the grief, a flicker of anger began to burn. How could Sarah do this? I couldn't let her win. I knew with a certainty that shook me that I had to fight, not just for my name, but for my parents' peace and truth. I started to replay every single memory. Sarah's subtle comments, the accidental spills, the misplaced items. It all clicked into place, pieces of a cruel puzzle. I pulled out a notebook, the kind I used for my parents' care schedule, and began to write. Every date, every incident, every odd observation. It felt like a detective's work, slow and meticulous, but it gave me purpose. This was how I would fight back, with facts, not just feelings. I felt a renewed focus, a clear path forward. I remembered a young visiting nurse, new to our rotation, who always seemed uncomfortable after Sarah's visits. I found her contact information and called her. My voice was gentle, calm, as I explained what had happened. She was scared, hesitant, but I assured her of protection. Slowly, she confessed. Sarah had pressured her, even paid her, to make certain observations that weren't true. A cold dread settled in my stomach, confirming my worst fears, but also a fierce satisfaction that I had found my first witness. My investigation led me to my parents' medical files. Sarah had always seemed to have easy access, even when she shouldn't have. I managed to get copies. There, hidden among the many pages, was a small, almost invisible alteration in a date on a medication log. Then, a receipt for a specific, expensive medication, purchased by Sarah, that my parent never actually took. It was undeniable proof of her active deception. My stomach churned with disgust, but my resolve hardened. I had the smoking gun. I arranged to meet Sarah in a busy park, a neutral public place. When she arrived, I looked her straight in the eye, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. "I know what you did, Sarah," I said. I didn't reveal everything, just enough to show I had proof. Her face went cold, a mask of denial. She threatened me, warned me to drop it, but I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes, just for a second. It was a small victory, knowing I had shaken her, knowing she knew I was coming. I compiled everything, dates, times, witness statements, the altered documents. It was a thick, heavy file, a testament to Sarah's betrayal. I took it to social services, to a trusted lawyer, and then, with a heavy heart, to our aunts and uncles. It was incredibly difficult. Some didn't want to believe it, having seen Sarah as the caring one. But the evidence, slowly and painstakingly, began to speak for itself. It was a painful, public unveiling, but I knew it was the only way to clear my name and protect my parent. The hardest step was talking to my parent. Their memory was so fragile, so easily swayed. I sat by their bedside, holding their hand, gently showing them the proof, explaining Sarah's treachery with simple words over and over. It took days, filled with tears and confusion, but then a heartbreaking moment of clarity, a flicker of recognition in their eyes, a squeeze of my hand. "My Clara," they whispered, their voice weak but sure. It was a small victory, but it meant everything. Our bond, though wounded, was starting to mend. The legal process was a draining, slow battle. Sarah fought back fiercely, denying everything, but my lawyer was relentless. The evidence was strong, undeniable. News of the case spread like wildfire. Our family, then the wider community, began to see the truth behind Sarah's facade. The whispers changed. People who had judged me now offered hesitant apologies. Sarah's carefully constructed image crumbled before everyone's eyes. I felt a profound sense of vindication, mixed with a deep sadness for the public spectacle our family had become. Finally, the day came. The charges against me were dropped. My name was cleared, publicly and unequivocally. The disinheritance was overturned, my rightful place restored. It was a huge relief, a weight lifted from my shoulders that I hadn't realized I was carrying. My parent was back in my loving care, though the stress of everything had taken its toll on their fragile health. Sarah faced legal consequences, losing her standing, her reputation shattered beyond repair. It wasn't triumph, not really. Just a quiet, hard-won justice. Years passed. My parent found peace in their final days, knowing the truth, their trust in me fully restored. Our bond was stronger than ever, but the scars of Sarah's betrayal remained, a permanent mark on our family's history. Sarah became a distant, painful memory, her actions a cautionary tale. I learned that some wounds never fully heal, but strength can be found in truth and unwavering love. My children understood the importance of fighting for what is right, even when it's hard. I found a quiet peace, a hard-earned wisdom, knowing I had done everything I could to protect my parent and reclaim my life. The cost was immense, but I had prevailed.